Hello, everybody, and welcome to episode 10 of the Awkwardly Big Dice podcast, AD&D podcast, with your host Dan and my usual co-host Rob.
Hello.
As usual, we'll be talking about Dungeons and Dragons and all things associated, including tabletop games, if that sort of subject arises. Got a few things planned. First, we'll start with our own news, I suppose. I haven't looked up D&D news either, to be honest. There's never much to talk about. Like they release a new book, and then we don't have much to talk about. Um,
I only notice drama when everybody's talking about stuff
yeah,
on
when
Instagram.
there's drama,
Yeah.
I think that's what most people notice as well. But with regards to our own sort of news, is that this will be our last stream on Twitch. From now on, we'll be going towards a video on demand only product content. So we'll be only putting our videos up on YouTube. You'll see the shorts on YouTube and Insta and link to them on Twitter and things like that. But as for Twitch itself, maybe in the future you might see it pop up again if we have something in particular we want to do. But for now, we want to try and concentrate more on our YouTube channel, which is a little more achievable to see growth than Twitch is at the moment for us. We just don't stream enough.
Yeah, I
Um,
don't think what we do really fits the streaming Twitch model, does it?
No, if we were doing this podcast along with other things as well, we would see the same. We could see more growth. Not that we're seeing great growth on YouTube, so if you haven't subscribed to us on YouTube, why not? Please go and subscribe to us on YouTube. Give this video a like. Go check out all our other videos, give them a like. Please, we'd like to see some really good growth on there. We believe we have interesting things to say, and I would like to grow our community, to create conversation around Dungeons and Dragons in a kind of casual, relaxed manner that we do, and in the awkward way that we are.
Yeah. Interact with us. We like being awkward.
Yeah, yeah. But yes, go check us out on the YouTube. Go check us out on X, formerly Twitter, as it's officially regarded in every email they send me and everything quote I ever see from Twitter is always X, formerly Twitter, because everybody still calls it Twitter.
Yeah.
So go check that out, and then go to our Instagram. We've seen the most growth so far on Instagram, I think. Like our reels
Yeah.
are, we've had a couple of uh, good viewership numbers on Instagram.
Not too bad. It's always
But
so sporadic and random, I find.
yeah, it is. Well, that's the same with all, I think.
Yeah.
Um,
True.
but we will start with, I guess, let's have a look and see what's actually in the news in a really lazy way that I probably should have done before this podcast. But
You're just looking now.
I'm just looking now, really unprepared. Uh, blah blah blah. Eh, eh. Nah, it's still Baldur's Gate stuff. Go check it out yourself if you're interested in little Baldur's Gate stuff. Um, yeah, and the Dungeons and Dragons freebie channel to launch this month, which I guess is the biggest news. Um, oh yeah, and there's a Deck of Many Things bundle that I've seen mentioned. Go check that out on D&D Beyond.
Fair enough.
But I don't really want to talk about that because I'll be honest, I've really been looking into it. Um, because for the most part, I've spent my time doing what dungeon masters do, and that is preparing for their own campaigns.
I definitely prep.
Okay, even my prep nowadays is nothing compared to the sort of tomes of lore and information that I used to put together. Now it's bullet points, very brief things. You'd be very impressed with my cutback,
Good.
I
Good.
think.
Yeah. I think it depends what stage of the campaign you're at. It depends if it's homebrew. Yeah, it's. I am doing some prep right now, but not huge amounts. Session 0 for Curse of Strahd is next Wednesday.
Nice.
Very much looking forward to that. Had some backstories come in, so I'm at that stage now where I'm just communicating with players, getting ready to start, making sure everybody's on the same page. Looking forward to it.
Good. I also seen with regards to Curse of Strahd that it's been a bit of it was a bit of talking point last month maybe with
But,
regards to D&D Beyond and their new maps thing. Their challenge to Roll20 and the like.
oh yeah, yeah, they're VTT sort of.
Yeah, that's the terminal. Yeah, BTT. And that they have, I think they released an article that was all about their Curse of Strahd maps. And I had to click on it and I thought, I'll be honest, I think the one Rob's already got from Incarnate looked better.
Oh, for the Castle Ravenloft,
Captain
they do an
Ravenloft.
actual map. Well,
Yeah.
the map in the book is isometric, which was always a bit of an annoyance for me because it's very difficult to navigate players through a small isometric map. So I did use some content that was freely available on
It's
Incarnate,
it's all
publicized.
based on the imagery that they've got on the website. It's all
Is it top down?
top-down squares.
Fair. I'll have a look at
Um,
it.
but and it makes it look a lot smaller than your maps, I'll be if I'm completely honest. Narrower corridors and stuff. I mean, I'm not looking at the map. I'm just looking at the images that are in the article that they've
Yeah.
produced. But it's kind of like not pretty. It doesn't look very pretty. It's just
Well,
like black lines and like yeah. There's no none of that pretty artwork that you can get with Incarnate.
that's kind of how they do their maps, though. I mean, they work. Don't get me
Mm.
wrong, but yeah, Incarnate does. Like, if you know what you're doing with Incarnate, you can make some gorgeous stuff.
Oh yeah. Yeah, this is just like there's a few websites you can go on that are free. I can't remember the one that I used to use was called, where you can just it's basically just black lines and to make the shapes of rooms and stuff.
Yeah,
It works, well enough if you can't afford or you don't want to use Incarnate, or maybe because if you're going to be playing in person, you're not going to want to put Incarnate maps down. Not really built for it. Unless you're talking about world maps, regional maps. Yes, you probably still want to use Incarnate for that. But for battle maps, I think Incarnate maps work best for uh, virtual tabletops.
yeah, yeah. I'd say almost a must, but that is my opinion.
And to But shall we move on to our usual topics and begin with
Certainly
those
shall.
to discuss those so that any possible rants with our final topic have the time, the air to breathe. Um,
Yes.
we'll start with our usual, which is obviously Spell of the Week and Monster of the Week. We're going to roll as we always do. The winner chooses who goes first. So this week I have chosen a monster and Rob has chosen a spell. Shall we roll? What dice are you using this week?
I'm using one that is from a set that Steph got me. I believe it was for Christmas a couple of years ago. It's a lovely set of clear, sparkly blue and red dice.
I'm going to use my chonkers, and my and chonkers not in size but in weight. These are metal
Oh, the
dice.
metal.
So the red and sort of silver metal dice that my brother gave to me. Um, yeah, they make a good clonk. They're actual metal, so they clonk when they are rolled. So I'll be using those. Um, yeah, let's roll. Ooh, that's good. You might get to go back into the rotation again.
I got a weird number because I mentioned that I not quite remember if I got these dice for my birthday or Christmas, but I rolled a 14, which is the date of my birthday. Weirdly enough. So yeah, did I beat you or did I lose?
No, you lost to me. Uh,
Well, my dice could go in jail.
I got an 18.
Nice. Yeah, I'm not going to beat that.
Mm, That's me. I'm happy because I would say traditionally I'm not a high roller.
You know,
I would say I'm middling, but I would say a lower roller than you for certain. And you're not, again, you're not, yeah, I think we're probably both pretty fair in our roles. You've had we discussed it before where you said that you thought you were a high roller, that people would call you out for your ridiculous roles. I haven't really seen that in,
No,
we, it's also difficult to judge because you're very much a min-maxer and I love to have these incredible builds. So you're always going to have great modifiers
I think that's
for the
part
stuff
of
that
it.
you
Like
do.
I make characters that, and I play to their strengths, and
Mhm.
I enjoy playing to their weaknesses. Like I do,
Mm.
what I would consider the whole shebang when it comes to min maxing. Like I enjoy a character's weaknesses as well as its strengths. So I think I roll low when I should, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I think,
Typically, at least.
yeah, I'd say in my experience, you're very balanced. I wouldn't say I've seen you roll poor rolls and I've seen you roll good rolls, and you're not. There are reasons why some people min-max, and that's because of a need to have something good or better.
Yeah,
Um, so they will never roll for something that doesn't fit the skills that they've got, the good modifiers they've got, the max modifiers rather than mins.
yeah,
Whereas, yeah, I've seen you roll mins a lot. Like that's not like an unusual thing, and that is a good thing because it's okay. You get your less experience or different types of players who don't focus on stats. They're just going to ask to do something, and
yeah.
they're not really thinking about what stat it is beforehand. But you will get maxes whose thing will always be, I'm going to do this because that's a stat I'm good at.
Yeah,
And that's
yeah,
fine. There are some things you are good at, ergo you should be doing and you want to do. If you're a rogue and you're really good at pit locking and disarming traps, you're probably going to be the guy to go and do that.
100%.
But you don't always have to be a cleric to be doing perception checks. You know what I mean?
No, no, absolutely not. However, you won the role, sir.
I did win the role.
You going first or last?
Well, tradition is usual that you go first, but it's episode 10.
Let's shake it up.
Let's shake it up. I'm gonna go first. Which we've had monster first and spell second before, but I think every episode we've done, you've nearly always gone first. So it's episode 10. Let's mix it up. I'm gonna go first. So this week we are going to be discussing the dragon turtle. You can see the image on the screen right now. The dragon turtle is a very big turtle mixed with a dragon
Oh
that in the image is attacking a ship that it is bigger than. Now, if you
That's a
see,
big ship as well.
it's a decent galleon at least. Now, there is other art, official art, that you can view in, I believe it's in Fizban's. If you have access to it on D&D Beyond, you can look on that, and I'm sure it's on Google. If you want to Google it, and there's some great art on there that makes it look even bigger. And I love that image so much more. I didn't think it was quite as good to stick on screen. So maybe if you're watching this on YouTube, I'll put it in the middle of the screen somewhere so that you can see the image I'm talking about. But
This
yes,
reminds me of
it is.
something called Gamera.
Hmm?
Reminds me of an old like Japanese kaiju film
Hmm.
movie called Gamera, where
Hmm.
this huge turtle, like Godzilla-sized turtle,
Yeah.
attacked a city. It's a really old film. But anyway, carry on.
As I mentioned, it's a gargantuan creature,
Yeah,
which is one of the reasons I love it. Because anything, I have this weird liking of little creatures fighting big things. I don't know what it is, and it's like that kind of that moment where like you've got the dragon being chopped out by the dude that's riding on its back, or
yeah.
um the whole typical. I mean, there's that. I don't know if you saw it on Instagram. There was a video that someone did, a reel that someone put up. There was a dude who looked very much like a barbarian with his axe and a slingshot thing that shot him over a lake, and it's just him going in the air with the axe.
Oh yeah, yeah. I did see that.
And like
Um,
some of the D&D jokes were like, when your artificer and your barbarian team up. Uh,
100%.
and that always that I was like, oh, that's yeah. Imagine him just like dragon turtle being there, and that's just the barbarian going at the dragon turtle, which is very reminiscent of oh, there was a movie that was all about dragons, and it was post-apocalyptic. Um,
Rain of Fire?
Rain of Fire, and Matthew McConaughey's character in that, and the way that he goes out is is so cool. He just goes up the tallest tower and jumps with his axe towards the big alpha dragon.
Nice. I mean,
Uh,
that's the way the barbarian should do it, to be honest.
yeah. Well, we've seen barbarians go out by a dragon, so when
Yeah, it went the other way.
Grim was torn apart by two white dragons. But yes, let's get back to my turtle dragon. We're looking at the ancient turtle dragon. Or turtle dragon. Why do I keep saying turtle dragon? I've got my head mixed. Ancient dragon turtle. Dragon turtle. Dragon turtle.
Potato, tomato.
It's a giant. It's a turtle first, dragon second. I think. It at least in appearance, it is
Yeah.
definitely turtle first, dragon second. So ergo, it's a type of dragon. It's a type of turtle. It's a dragon turtle. Though, if you look at a lot of what it can do, it has a breath attack, which there goes, oh, it's a dragon because it has a breath attack, a bite attack, a tail attack, very dragon things. It's quite cool that it's again it's very thematic with being a dragon turtle. It has the steam breath,
Oh,
charges on a 5 or 6, but it has a steam breath. Now I don't know. You can correct me if you know better. I don't know any other dragon that has steam breath. There might be one because there's so many dragons these days. There might be one somewhere that's another sea dragon thing, but this is the only one I know of, and it
yeah,
thematically fits.
there's not that many that kind of thing in D&D because water damage isn't a thing like it is in Pokemon, for example.
Hmm.
Um, so like I noticed straight away that that's doing fire damage
Yeah,
as an effect, and obviously it would because it's very hot.
it's
It's a cloud of
burning.
hot water, essentially. And it does remind me very much of a specific attack from Pokemon, which is I can't remember what it's called now. Maybe like boiling steam or steam cannon or something. But
Hmm.
it is water damage, but it can have a percentage chance to inflict a burn. And it's kind of like I always liked that because you're getting two different effects
Hmm.
or two sorts of things or a combination of things.
Yeah.
So I do
Um.
like.
But yes, I just love the vibe of it, especially when I've just looked now. DC 24 con save. That's going to be rough for a lot of your party because I mean, who gets con save proficiency? Barbarians?
Barbarians, maybe fighters. I don't know.
Maybe fighters? Everyone else, it's not going to go particularly well for. I wonder, do no, they won't do. They'll have thinking about monks, but I don't think they do. I think that's wisdom and dex probably.
Oh God, it's been a while since I've looked at saves. If I'm
Hmm.
honest, and I'm playing a warlock at the minute, and their charisma and wisdom. That's all I can
Hmm.
tell you. I think
Until you look at it, you go, oh, that's not. But anyway, that's a and it does like a
it is.
usual big chunk of lovely damage, and his rub that it does it's fire damage, but it's like it's just I don't know. It's just the idea of it just being you can imagine because if you look at like some of its like its legendary, it's got boiling aura
Yeah.
and its ultimate mythic actions and just some of the sort of what they call regional effects.
Oh, like lair and regions and that
Yeah,
sort of thing.
a lot of it's to do with like steam and currents and stuff like that in the water. Just the idea of this thing just like coming out of the water with steam rising out of its nostrils is epic. You're just on the side of a ship and this face just comes out the side with steam rising out, and it just melts your skin off you, just like a lobster in hot water. You just fried on cooked on the inside.
Yeah.
Uh, but you also notice that being underwater doesn't gain resistance against his damage. So if you have resistance to fire damage, for example, if you are a tiefling,
Yeah,
doesn't matter, you're underwater, you're gonna get boiled anyway.
this is true.
Which is an interesting thing to do because you don't see many things that counter resistances. That remove resistances. It's not a common thing. If anything, it's gonna be something that a DM puts in as an improv element of a game, but it's not something that you typically get.
Yeah,
Uh,
doesn't typically happen.
no, but the one of the things that actually really drew my eye, because I was always going to do Dragon Turtles. As mentioned to Rob before we start the stream, that I've always loved Dragon Turtles, and when they were in the Monster Manual, I was going to use one of them. But then Fizban's introduced like the different ages that you normally get with a dragon, so that's why we're looking at the Ancient because it's the top level, the one that has everything thrown
No,
into
yeah.
it. And I thought, well, all right, let's have a look. When I was looking up the Dragon Turtle, let's have a look and see what the Ancient one gets. And I really like this Blessing of the Sea, if you've had a look at it.
Let's have a look.
But basically, if it's reduced to 0 hit points, it suddenly just like gets pretty much most of its hit points back if it goes to 0, and its Steam Breath recharges, and then it can start using its mythic actions.
Oh, it's got a phase 2 basically.
Basically, it's got a written in it into the actual stat block of phase 2, which is great because like phase for those who are unaware of what we're talking about with like phases, often in boss, almost exclusively in boss fights, you tend to find that a really good way to amp up tension is to have a second phase of combat.
Yeah.
So your monster mutates into something else, or is killed and resurrected as something else. If you've played Baldur's Gate, you'll seen this in, for example, the Ketheric Thorm fight where you fight Ketheric
Oh, yeah.
Storm, and then once he's defeated, he basically comes back as this big sort of aspect of my cruel, I think it is, isn't it?
Yeah, you'll see it a lot in your Soulsborne, pardon me, your Soulsborne games.
Yes.
So often you'll see it in your MMOs like World of Warcraft, that sort of thing. Fights typically have sometimes maybe 3 or 4 phases where you'll have
Yeah.
to change behavior. So that's quite interesting. Like, I've done it before with homebrew monsters, um,
Yeah, me too.
where I've wanted the fight to just. It's useful when you've got a singular big creature like this, and you know that all your players are going to obviously tunnel vision the damage onto this because there's nothing else to do. So you want something to kind of break up that fight a little bit and make it kind of have that suspense, have that, oh, we think we've won, but we haven't. There's another mountain to climb. I really like that. That's good. Doesn't
Agreed.
quite heal up to max,
No,
but
but it's if you're going off his
it's,
average hit points, it's not too far off. Um, but it does allow it to use its mythic actions, which is a bite attack and its armor of storms, which is also very exciting. Basically, surrounds itself in lightning, and it gets some temporary hit points, so will make up for those not quite getting to the max.
yeah, that's a lot of 10 hit points as well. 40.
Yes, it is. Um, but basically it's just full of electricity. Uh,
Yeah, and you take damage for hitting it with a melee attack.
yeah, yeah. I That's so exciting. I don't know. It's something really interesting about this thing of just it's the kaiju aspect as well, and it's the idea of this thing in this massive creature coming out of the water, and you having to fight up this massive creature that you think, yes, I've beat it. Yeah, if you're playing XP, then you've got loads of XP for it, and you're like, yeah, we've defeated it, and then the next thing you know, is just lightning sparking from the water, across the water, the waves begin to shift once more as this huge gargantuan head peers back over the side of the boat. Its eyes just full of lightning and sparks as steam begins to rise from its nostrils once more. It's just like this epic great creature.
Yeah, yeah.
Uh,
Do you know what?
well,
does not resist, nor is it immune to poison.
Oh wow.
So it's got my vote.
It has some other immunities and
It does,
whatnot.
yeah. Cold and fire, you kind of somewhat expect at least fire,
Mm.
and cold is a good one too. Like it's got a must have a massive, thick carapace and obviously a huge shell, so like that
Mm.
kind of makes a lot of sense. I'm surprised it doesn't have the basic damage resistances, to be honest.
Yeah, well, it has a lot of hit points and a whopping 22 armor class. So
I mean, I suppose I didn't notice that AC actually. That's very good. I suppose it almost is redundant because everyone's going to have magic weapons by the time you get to this point.
yes, yeah, when you're going up against this creature. The great thing also, if we just kind of look at some of the way it's described and what it is, these creatures are supposed to be smart, are at least smart enough that you can negotiate with them, and they in their sort of lore it is known that you can kind of negotiate with a dragon turtle, and that pirates will sometimes, or sailors will just bribe a dragon turtle to be able to traverse its territory, which is always a very interesting part of dragons in general, especially if they are the slightly more intelligent ones, your greens and your reds and stuff like that, opposed to your more aggressive, feral white dragons, for example.
Oh yeah, because you've got to give it ideals,
You can give it,
personality
yeah, yeah, you
traits.
can give it
Well, you don't
personality
have to.
traits and ideals, and it gets spell casting if you want to give it spell casting, which I probably would, but I'd probably make it far more of like a part of its layers actions.
Yes.
Like obviously control water, control weather, fog, cloud. This thing's like gargantuan. It basically its own atmosphere anyway, so it makes sense. Um,
Give it call lightning quite easily in the second
mhm,
phase, or that other spell that I really liked the other day, ball lightning.
mhm. The layer actions it's got blasting current, entangling kelp, and steam eruption. They're pretty much all what they sound like. So the current one, the blasting current it can move you around with the current of the water. Entangling kelp, it's entangle basically, but with kelp. And steam eruption is yes, a load of steam comes out of the ground because they tend to live on the sort of the floor of the seabed or sort of reefs and stuff like that, where you might find those sort of underwater vents.
Yeah, gazers, geysers,
Geysers? Yes, I guess so, yeah.
those things,
Um, and they
big
do
steamy cannons.
often have a tendency to, because of their nature, to wander into the plane of water as well, the elemental plane of water. So they can often be found there. So giving them this sort of control really kind of works with the flavor of.
Really good if you are doing anything, any campaign related to like kaiju hunting.
Mhm.
If you're a big fan of the video game Monster Hunter, you'll love this sort of thing,
Yeah.
which I am. So I really do like this sort of fight. I think they're always really fun, and you can always kind of add a little bit of lore to them. Like you've said with the regional effects, always add so much flavor.
Mhm.
I really love the fact that you can like give it ideals and a personality.
Well, it's smart enough to do so that I think it's always something to consider. I
Yeah,
I'll be honest, I don't generally go into that sort of structured construction of an NPC or a monster, but generally I think about my villains, my monsters' backstories a
yeah,
bit, their character. Um, if we look at, for example, he wasn't he was a monster, but you did not fight him in our current campaign, Stormere. You met a lich
yes,
called Drez the Dark One. Now, I came up. He has a story of his own that
yeah, of
helps me then
course.
inform how I was to play him. And what this does, that if you look at at least what we're looking at on the D&D Beyond page, it'll likely be from, I imagine, Fizban's.
Yeah, probably.
that it actually has it broken down into those typical character building parts on D&D Bond, or if you're just doing it from the player's handbook, which is your personality traits, your ideals, and stuff like that. Or it doesn't have like the flaws and stuff, but you're gonna give it that stuff. If you get it an ideal and personality trait, give it a flaw.
I think it's good to see because I think like obviously you mentioned it with Dres the Lich,
Mm.
and obviously my mind always goes to things like Strahd.
Yeah.
They're humanoids that you obviously find it easier to envision interacting with. I think so. It's almost natural that we give those creatures personalities, backstories, behaviors, that sort of stuff. So, but I think it's quite nice to see it
Yes.
applied to a large creature that isn't just a dragon or a demon, and therefore has languages, that sort of stuff. This has languages. It's got Aqua and it's got Draconic.
Mhm.
Going back to the point we've raised previously, I would just give it common as well, just so that it can talk to players
Yes, agreed.
if it
I
wanted.
would too.
Um,
It's quite funny with I remember seeing it before when I was looking through it as I was just kind of talking, trying to find, and I realized what set it's under. There's a section called Ancient Dragon Turtle Connections, so it might be Dragon Turtle Connections. And the first one I like it's just like an ancient dragon turtle and an ancient gold dragon meet once a year to trade moves in a game of dragon chess that has been going on for centuries. I mean, it's got like a charm or like a quirkiness to it. Um, there's a
yeah,
few of them that they're a bit more serious, but that one I really like the idea of them just turning up to play chess of all things.
I do like it. I like the idea that yeah, its shell could just be an island.
Hmm.
Like this, the one of them that says a gear spell forces an ancient dragon tail to carry a lich's tower, but there could be an entire like fishing village on its back.
Hmm. Well, I think there's a bit where it talks about is it Sagwain, or whatever they're called? The fish-ish people, the evil mer people, I guess. Um, riding them or something like that, turning them into or was it Jin or something? Or like genies like in the plane of water, so that's your is that your Jin? That's your Jin is no, that's genie, so what is it? Dao? No, Dao are the Earth ones. Oh, they've all got different names, it's really makes them really annoying.
I think it is Jin.
Is it Jin?
Yeah,
It must be Jin, right? Yeah, it
because the
probably is Jin.
fire ones they free.
Oh, the fire ones they freed. Yeah, so it must be. Yeah, it's Jin. The Jin. I could easily see a Jin teaming up with or having gained the service of a dragon turtle.
It is Jin because the warlock one, where you choose a Jin as a
Hmm.
patron, they give you like the corresponding elemental damage, and I'm sure there's one that gives you um, bludgeoning damage, which is usually what D&D uses for water. So that makes sense to me. But yeah,
But yeah,
I can see that happening.
it's just got. Yeah, I just if I was, I could even use it in Stormia, man. I'd love to use it in Stormia. Not obviously not on the island itself. I think that kind of becomes a difficult thing. But if we were to do another sort of like um, skyship adventure, or to be fair, I could also do it so you end up going through a portal into the elemental plane of water, or the elemental realm of
Absolutely.
water, and you end up there and there's a big dragon. Though I'd probably throw a kraken at you, but kraken is one I will definitely do on another occasion. I like big gargantuan creatures. So
Or a kraken riding an ancient dragon tail. Why
I
not?
think they're like the same size with
Yeah, I know.
gargantuan, or a mutated where they've become one of the same, one and the
No,
same,
they've fused
fused together. So it's just a giant dragon turtle with tentacles.
ancient dragon, kraken, turtle,
Uh,
and bear pig.
yeah, like big. Um, but yes, I will someday get to use it because it's always been. And the problem with me is I've always saved it for getting to DM a party that is higher level, that is either
Yeah.
like third or fourth tier. And you guys are inching your way towards it, so one day, one day.
Well, give us some levels up,
Oh, I
some
will
magic
do once you've actually like completed a like story or arc or mission or something. Haven't really completed anything yet.
No,
Um,
not on the new campaign. We've kind of faffed about. But anyway,
but you've
yeah,
faffed about in a very organic manner.
yes, we have. we're approaching things.
Yes. We'll move on from Ancient Dragon Turtle, that lovely, lovely sea creature. I also, by the way, just really like turtles and tortoises. So that's probably also a reason why I like this creature. But we'll move on from it. So say goodbye on my screen, on our screens, and we'll go to Spell of the Week with Rob. What have you got for us today?
So my spell is a bit of an old favourite. I really like this spell for many reasons. Um, it's easy to get access to it. It's a second level spell. I've picked Heat Metal. It's a spell that I think kind of surprises people quite often.
I think it's
Um,
underrated. Yeah.
it is very underrated because I think it has some pretty stark weaknesses, which I'll get to in a minute. Basically, it's level 2 spell. It's a concentration spell, as you probably would expect. You look at a creature, if it's carrying or wearing anything metal, you make it very hot. The typical visual example would be when Aragorn and his buddies meet Gandalf the White, and
Yeah.
he makes Aragorn's sword very hot. You see him physically drop it.
Hmm.
It's that perfect example. Um, it's a very wizardy themed spell, but it is available for. Uh,
Bards, druids, artificers, and forge domain
how do
clerics.
wizards not get that spell? I don't trust D&D Beyond sometimes. I'm sure some wizards have it.
Yeah, I know.
But anyway, I've
I
used it
mean,
on my artificer.
you could get it.
Yeah, it just seems silly to not. It feels like me to be a very wizardy themed spell.
You could
But
get
anyway,
it. You could get it with any number. You just get the freaking magic initiate, and then you
you could.
can eventually get it. I think, or no, it only gives you
Um,
first level, doesn't it? First and trips. So
yeah,
magic
it's
initiate. So you wouldn't be able to get it. But speak to your
I've,
DM. Be right.
yeah.
Just
It's not like you're asking for the world. But anyway,
just give your DM a
I always
wink and and buy them something nice for Christmas, and maybe they'll let you take it.
yeah, I am quite easily bribed. I'll say that much.
Pizza.
As a DM. Okay, so yeah, it's as I said, it's concentration. You'll notice, similar to a lot of the damaging spells that I've picked to talk about before, it's a continuing effect because I love spells that give me value. Probably comes from playing Warlock for far too long and really wanting those spell slots to work hard. Um, Again, I behaved quite similarly when I played Narakis, my Artificer, because he was not a full caster.
Mm.
I wanted to really make those spell slots count. If something is carrying an object that is metal, like a big sword, axe, whatever, hammer, or is wearing some metal armor, you can cast this spell on that creature. Whatever item you pick gets extremely hot. The creature then must succeed on a Constitution saving throw or drop the object, much like Aragon did in the example that we have discussed.
Yeah.
Uh, he, it doesn't drop the object. Sorry, if it passes the save, it doesn't drop the object, um, but it will still have disadvantage on attack rolls and ability checks until the start of your next turn. And when you cast it, you deal 2d8 fire damage, and then you may repeat that as a bonus action each turn thereafter, thus repeating the effect I also just mentioned. So,
Which in my opinion makes it a really good spell because any spell
yeah,
that allows you to repetitively, whichever the
yeah,
word is, do damage without having to recast it, even if it is concentration. We talked about Spirit Guardians in some capacity before, same sort of thing. You're able to do damage without having to recast and use another spell slot. Love that.
love that value over time.
Hmm.
Always love it. It's a bonus action to do it though, so you need to make sure you're balancing your bonus actions. I was uh, a forge, no, battlesmith, artificer, the one with the steel guardian, and they need your bonus action to act. So I had to juggle that sometimes.
Hmm.
Um, Again, it wouldn't work very well against like a great weapon master character if you were using like a paladin or something like that, um, or something else that was wielding a big weapon and you wanted to try and get that bonus action attack by critting or killing stuff. So you really you need to know that it is that bonus action. Um, it's really good to manipulate in that if you cast it on an item that cannot be dropped, like a suit of armor,
Mm.
a big old breastplate that's belted on and will take, by the rules, more than the fight's length to take off, um, then it automatically would fail that Constitution saving throw. It wouldn't even take it, to be honest, because it can't drop the item. That's really all that the con save is for. Um, it's taking the damage regardless, and it's going to have disadvantage on attack rolls and ability checks until the start of your next turn. So if you're against a big knight, um, unless that knight is a flaming knight and probably immune to fire,
Mm.
which has happened, we'll get to that in a second.
Well, I've
And
got a
it's really
story
good
too.
to, yeah,
I know Steph's watching, so she might even remember it.
yeah, I'm sure she will. It did kind of become the favourite spell of Steph's Druid for a
Did?
little while, which you do typically see happen when players are kind of getting used to a new spellcaster and they can pick a few favourite spells and cast it quite often. So obvious weakness that I mentioned earlier or alluded to earlier is that if the creature you're fighting has no metallic objects in its possession, the spell is not going to affect them. Um, if you're against, I don't know, a giant sea turtle that's not wielding a sword, a giant sea dragon turtle that's not wielding, it's not going to affect that. It's not
No.
going to affect, like, if you're out in the woods and you come up against some sort of fey creature that's
Mm.
like mostly elemental, or just it's
Okay.
quite a low level spell, so you could fight things like bears and wolves. It's not going to work on them.
No. Yeah.
Um,
Or treants, or there are obviously certain fey creatures that use weapons that could work, but in general,
yeah, I can think of a way around that if you really want to get it to work, and that would be to throw like a chain net over it, like a metal
sure.
chain net, or um, literally impale an entire short sword in its back, or something like that.
Shoot it with some
Um,
arrows and heat the tip of the arrow.
I'd say you probably need a bit more than an arrow because
Mm.
I'm trying to get away with something here.
Yeah.
So I would personally, as a player and a DM, I would say you need more than an arrow, but like um, an implement where the whole thing is metal because the shaft of an arrow tends to be wood.
It is wood.
Um,
Yeah.
so like a dagger, I'd say would work personally. Like I said, a sword, um, something that can really get in there and stick out. Or if you just had a load of chain, you could maybe go a bit Ghost Rider on it and just like try and like lasso it in chain and then
Yeah.
heat the
Try and get it so
chain.
the stats you'll use is like a whip, but it's a chain. You could
Yeah,
maybe, yeah.
or
But
use it. Have another player use an action to literally just run up and try and grapple it with a chain. Once successfully like grappled, and maybe do a sleight of hand check to like lock the chain up or something.
yeah, just
Run
get
away.
your paladin or your fighter who's wearing full plate to jump on it and just grab it, and you
Yeah,
just heat the actual your friend's armor, and then they're suffering with them, I guess. I don't know.
or just run up and plant a helmet on its head.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's jokes aside, there's loads of ways to get it to work, but it is a bit of a glaring weakness if you're against things that aren't typically carrying metal. Then it's not going to be overly useless unless you get, I mean, overly useful unless you get quite creative with how you
Mhm.
apply the spell. Um, but for a second level spell, 2d8 damage, 2d8 fire damage every turn is not to be snuffed at. It's
Yeah,
really
yeah.
really good.
But yeah, I tell you what, I'll tell you my story that I recall of the use of heat metal and how not to use it. Um, there was a time when we played a one shot because it was back during we were doing our Nuri campaign, where I was DM for Nuri, but Rob and
Susie,
Susie, it was Susie, was it, were absent, and we
Christmas parties.
yes, Christmas parties was, and so my brother took over as DM and did a one shot that was set in a maze. The final boss of it being a chain devil. Now, uh, using heat metal on a chain devil isn't the automatic instinct there should be let's not do that because it's a devil, so likelihood is it's going to have fire resistance at least. Um,
It's a bit big.
it's a good shout if you're thinking. If I've just seen in our chat, I was seeing Steph mention this, um, but it's not a good shout to use it on the devil because its likelihood is if you're thinking a little bit of logic is it's probably resistant to fire. Yeah, it's covered in chains, so I can get the it's covered in metal stuff, but it's a devil. So yes, yes, Steph decided to try and heat metal it, and it did not work. I mean, I tried. I levitated just to be able to levitate because I was playing an air genasi,
Oh right, yeah,
and they get levitation or levitate, whatever the spell's called, like
yeah,
1 day use. And I just wanted to use it, so I was up in the air for no reason other than to be up there. So like we all do dumb things.
yeah. We do.
Um, but yes, don't use it against things that are going to have fire resistance. There's a good lesson there. Um, use a bit of logic, especially with a with a chain devil. Because I get the idea. The idea is it's covered in metal. Yeah, if only it wasn't a devil. Eh? If it was a chain fey or a chain celestial or something, that'd be great. But it's not.
Yeah, no, it's again that's the kind of weakness of anything that does fire damage. It's one of the more commonly resisted
Mm,
and immune to damage types. Not as bad as poison, not by a country mile,
no.
but it's one of those things where if you, I've kind of discussed this a little bit before, where it's like, is it meta? Would my character know this sort of stuff? And you've got to kind of like really kind of make that decision.
Yeah.
I like to always just have my character learn it in the moment, but maybe in a less costful way.
Hmm.
Like, soon as when I was playing Arrakis, as soon as he saw imps for the first time,
Hmm.
he had Firebolt.
Hmm.
So he cast Firebolt at them. No, it kind of, I knew full well we weren't going to die to imps. So I got it out of the way. I was
You
like,
got it.
okay, that imp
It
didn't
was the
take any damage from that
very
Firebolt.
first fight of the campaign. I was not gonna kill you off.
No,
Um,
I know you weren't. But I mean, I knew imps well enough to be like, we're not dying to
no,
imps.
no.
And I had a magic weapon anyway, so because I was an artificer, so I was like, okay, this is gonna go fine. Let my character have a little bit of a learning moment and be like, okay, those things are immune to fire. Moving on, sort
Yeah,
of thing.
yeah. I mean, we've seen some great examples in our own games of a good use of heat metal. Like,
We have.
when you had that moment outside of the city of Ulrich, and you had to fight those mutated dudes with the champion of Malice. Um, I mean, there was some great moves altogether in that fight. I recall like the shrinking of the horse was
Yeah, tiny horse.
a legendary moment. But I think it was used in that fight as well. Um,
Yeah, I think I did heat metal on it. And while Steph's character did the tiny horse maneuver.
yeah, tiny horse maneuver. Yeah.
Yeah, if you
uh,
ever see someone riding a horse, cast
reduce.
enlarge slash reduce on it
Yeah,
and make it tiny. Well, I think it technically would not be tiny. I think it would become
it become medium, but it can't be
medium,
ridden then.
but it can no longer be ridden. That's the point. And then they took their mutagen and got big. So it was like there was a big, massive
Yes.
thing, mutated fella with armor that was like
Yeah.
like stuck to him because he was bulging out of it now.
Yeah.
And then there was just this. In my mind, it was a lot smaller than it would have actually have
Oh,
been
I
because I
definitely
just imagined
flavored it.
this tiny horse.
Yeah, I definitely flavored it as being like a little tiny pygmy pony thing.
Yeah,
Like that was definitely how I saw it in my head. Um, well, we're going to be getting another druid in our campaign very soon, in our current
we are.
campaign soon. So maybe we'll see heat metal thrown out there. Though he's playing a moon druid, a circle of the moon, so less likely to see spells. Going to see a lot of different beasts. I think him turning into different creatures.
Look forward to it. Not seen a Circle of the Moon Druid in a while.
I like
Um,
them, but mostly because it's the druid it's the wild shape druid. So I like
yes,
the
it is.
wild shape druid opposed to your spellcasting druids. Which I mean, I don't know. Like always think if I want to play a spellcaster, druid's not the first one I go to. But I think that's mostly just maybe a bit of a a my thing, a me thing. It's like
I
I'd rather play wizard or a cleric or a warlock rather than.
Depends on the vibe you want.
But
Like
yeah.
I'm playing a druid in Storm King's Thunder, and he's a fat little dwarf. He's got a negative into dexterity, so he's clumsy. Um, he is a circle of wildfire druid,
Mm,
and he just likes to make food. He likes to cook things with his little goat, which I can't remember what I called it, but it was a ridiculous name.
a
Um,
little goat.
yeah, his little flaming goat that he summons because
Oh, I was thinking that he
wildfire.
just eats the same goat over and over again. Is that what you're talking
No,
about?
no,
Yes.
he was a little like he was a claustrophobic dwarf, which was fun to play, and he still is a claustrophobic. He's not dead or anything. He's a claustrophobic dwarf. He's currently in a cave right now, and he is not having a good time. And he just lived out in the woods, um, being a bit of a farmer, really,
Yeah,
and learned druid craft because he saved a big tree from some goblins, and the tree came alive and taught him the ways of the woods, and that was literally it. And
cool.
I like him as a spellcaster because I think I don't know. I quite like druids as spellcasters because they're just a bit different. They've got
They
different
are.
spells. Wizards. They've
They
got a
are.
different flavor and a different vibe. But I do definitely get if you want to turn into big beasts, you're
Mm,
going to play a druid.
mhm.
So I do get some people will think, well, I don't want to do that, so I'm going to play a sorcerer or a
Yeah, I think it's just it's my
cleric.
head of like what's the unique thing that each class does? The
Yeah,
unique thing that the druid does is wild shape. Now you could argue, well, technically, other spellcasters can cast polymorph. Polymorph is not the same.
no, it's not. It's
Uh,
definitely not.
so wild shape is still the unique thing that a druid does. But yeah, I can think of several fun different ways you could play a druid that is more of a spellcaster. Because of that whole closeness to nature thing that they have. And the claustrophobic thing, I feel like it's not a cliche, but I've definitely heard like they don't like to be away from nature. I mean, you've got it in Baldur's Gate with Halsin. Doesn't like it when
Yeah,
you're in Baldur's Gate because it's not close to nature. Um, in Critical Role Campaign 1, you have Keyleth. She does not like to be on the ground for the first arc of their thing. That's not included in the anime show, but in their first arc, they spend a lot of time on the ground, and she's very comfortable with that. So it is a thing that's done, but it's never done as like claustrophobia. So that's quite an interesting twist
mine was more
on.
because he's a dwarf more than anything, and
Yeah,
he
it's a
survived. Yeah, because dwarves are like underground
underground.
miners.
Yeah.
Um, he was almost he wasn't quite kicked out of the dwarven city that he was from, but he was shunned quite a bit because he has a bit of PTSD in that dwarves quite often have issues with goblins, territorial bouts underground.
Mhm.
There were a lot of cave-ins, and he just happened to survive one too many cave-in, and he started to get a lot of anxiety.
Yeah.
He would hear little noises, and he'd be like you know, little like kind of smatter of dirt falling, and he'd be like, "Oh God, there's going to be a cave in," and he'd start to hyperventilate, and like that. And that's kind of his backstory, and he just felt like useless as a dwarf, so he just decided to go on an adventure. He knew people had left and like found work as blacksmiths and stuff like that, but he just found that he liked wandering the woods and living off the
Mm.
land.
It's a weird one because dwarves, at least, is it? I think it's dwarves in general, but I can't remember, or if I can't remember, if it's a subclass, a subrace of dwarves that have wisdom um as a plus to their stats,
Oh, I don't know.
+2, +1. Definitely dwarves that do. So they're a good shout for weirdly as druids as well. If you're going by that, not playing like by tashes where you can put your points wherever you want. Um,
Definitely did Tasha's. I chose whichever one gets +2 in two things. I went with that
mhm.
and applied it probably to con and wisdom.
Yeah, why not? Always a good one. And depending on your roles and stuff. But with that, yeah, we got very, very distracted from heat metal and
Yeah,
just started talking
we did.
druids. Apparently, that's become our
We
calling
like a good
card.
tangent.
Our calling card is definitely tangents now. I think we are The Tangent Boys, no longer the Glare Boys, the Tangent Boys. 'Cause we were
I'm
the Glare
still a
Boys
glare
last
bot.
week. You're still. I don't think I have Glare this time. The Tangent Boys. But yes, that was Heat Metal followed by Druids.
Yeah, in general. Heat metal, great spell. Have fun
Good
with it.
spell. It's a concentration spell and a worthwhile concentration spell in my opinion.
And DMs, let your players enjoy it. Don't just stop using things that are using metal to counter
Yes,
it. Use a balance.
let your wizards have it.
That too, yeah.
Shall we move on then to our next topic, which is D&D hot takes and pet peeves. The things that are either really popular or liked within the D&D community that we're a bit like, okay, or things that are in D&D that you just annoy you particularly. You got anything you want to throw at us first, Rob?
So are we particularly talking about things like in the rules or
Anything.
uh,
If you've got something that really grinds your gears, to quote Peter Griffin.
a, lo- a lot of my main pet peeves are just ones that translate into just the rest of life anyway.
Hmm.
I will preface this by saying all of my players, I love you all. I enjoy playing D&D with you all. This is not an attack. Please don't feel attacked. I wouldn't play D&D with you if I didn't love
Hmm.
playing D&D with you. So that said, people that can't communicate very well, as a
Offended
DM,
already. Oh,
oh, as a DM, it's frustrating
it
because as a
is.
DM, you want all your players to have fun. And the best way for players to have the most fun, in my opinion, is
Hmm.
to communicate what you want out of the game with me. Share your ideas with me. Work collaboratively with me to achieve those goals. So a really, really good example of that is when we were playing Curse of Strahd. I mean, we chat a lot anyway.
Hmm.
But I would hopefully think that I'm an approachable DM and anybody can chat to me if
Yeah,
they
yeah.
need to. Um, you spent a lot of time bouncing ideas for Emmerich off me, and because of that, you had a very rich backstory. You had
Hmm.
a lot of. I was able to kind of weave that into the main narrative of the campaign, and I think it was very rewarding. And even when Emmerich died, it made his whole experience in the campaign worth it, if that
Yeah.
makes sense. Like, it gave you a very rewarding end to that character. Um, and if you hadn't have communicated with me anywhere near as much, that wouldn't have happened as much. I don't mean to say that you need to communicate with me to that level,
No.
but I think some communication is so important. And I know some of my players definitely don't communicate as much as I would like, and it does mean that I then try to do things for them.
Hmm.
Think like, what would that player and that character like me to do if I want to give them some extra spotlight? But then it means I'm guessing at what they would want,
Yeah.
and I might not hit the mark. Or if I'm saying I should probably put a magic item here that would be well suited to that player, but I'm thinking then what would I like to play? What would work well in the
Hmm.
rules? Not what does this player want?
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
so there's a lot of stuff there that like would be more successful and have more fun just simply if I was communicated with a bit more. And then kind of I suppose the last point of communication is the thing that really frustrates me. And luckily I don't have to deal with this often, if ever, um, because I think the people that don't communicate at all have mostly drifted out of my groups, probably because of that.
Oh.
And that's people that just do not communicate.
Yeah.
Um, when I say that, I don't just mean about characters or the game. I mean, full stop.
Yeah.
Like, they won't tell us they're not coming to a session until it's already started.
Yeah.
Or they'll tell me that they're dropping from the group 1 minute before we're due to
Hmm.
start, um, because of a problem that may have arisen that they then haven't actually communicated early enough for it to be fixed,
Hmm.
which is something that actually happened and was quite unfortunate.
Hmm.
Um, and and then on top of that, just not like on top of the communication topic, just not engaging with the game.
Mm,
Um, I've had issues in the past where you can quite clearly see knowing a particular player in my Monday group loved to watch League of Legends tournaments,
mhm.
and was a big football fan as well. And there's nothing wrong with loving either of those things. Most of
No,
my players like one or the other
yeah.
in that group, very common. Um, but you could literally see them turning to look at a different monitor, and you could see like the light of a TV screen kind of keep flickering on their face, and it's
Mhm.
like, bro, come on, pay attention.
Yeah.
Watch that later.
Yes, we've I think we've mentioned it before, but some people do have the ability to split their attention and some don't.
Yeah.
And it's usually very obvious the ones that don't. Um,
Yes.
I, I wish I could play devil's advocate to your communication thing, but there is no way to play devil's advocate to the community. You should always be communicating. It's just
Yeah.
the polite thing to do, with regards to the not turn up and things like that. Um, yeah, always communicate. If you want to get the most out of D&D, communication is key.
It's collaborative
Uh,
storytelling
it
at the
it
best.
is,
So
and you might be lucky that you either know the DM really well if you, especially if you're playing it. I suppose it's very important for homebrew, but can also be applied into pre-written campaigns. But if you know your DM really well, they may be able to write something specifically for you that works. Otherwise, the DM will always go with something that just seemed interesting to them.
yeah,
I tend not to get too caught up with the magic item side of thing. I know you're a really big fan of like magic items.
yeah,
Um, so I don't tend to get caught up in like, oh, what magic items they want, this and that, or those sort of things that I can give them. I want to be able to give them a good story. Tend to tell, I just really like telling stories and really like entertaining people. So if I can figure out a way to do that, um, I will find it. It's great if people could give me more to do that with, um, rather than me having to figure it out. But then again, I really do like, as you have noted in the past, I really like twists in a story.
yeah. You do.
Um, you'll find that most of my adventures have twists. Even our current one, like I recently threw a twist in, and that's because I've got really into into making sure that there are consequences to people's actions. So if you do
Yeah,
something, and our current campaign being quite open world or sandbox, let's say open world to sandbox, that it allows me to do that far easier than I normally would. So if you've got a very rigid is even the wrong word, but you've got a sort of fixed story that you're trying to tell, and you know it from
yeah.
beginning to end, you're not necessarily going to adjust things to whatever the players do. You should really keep the back end of your campaign fluid. Don't set it in stone to until you're closer to it. Would be my advice. That's what I did with Nuri, and I think it worked well. But
Yeah, it did.
with what we're doing now, having like the little when I always have you guys write backstories, I see it as a necessity that you
Yes.
write a number of paragraphs. I think I usually say like write 3 paragraphs, beginning, middle, and end, sort of thing. And then I'll ask you questions if we do session 0. If we're
Yeah,
looking at to do session 0, we'll ask questions about stuff off each other, and then you can adjust your backstory if you've not written one, or you can write your backstory based on the information that you've come up with your DM during session 0. But there's always gaps, and
there
I
is.
like to see those gaps and go, that is my target. That is my bullseye with the dart. I am going to hit that, and and kind of what I'm doing right now, to be honest, is very much that sort of thing. Is that in Stormere we have Steph's getting a lot of mentions tonight. Her character Timothy lives with his parents, Ekon and the mother that I don't remember the name of right now. Um,
I don't even know it. But then Fitz doesn't know it, so I have no reason to know it.
I don't know.
You're the DM, you should know.
I should know. Uh, um, Anyway, regardless, like I had it so as part of Old Uncle Consequences that Ekon, Timothy's father, was kidnapped.
Yes.
He had been absconded with, and that was due to Steph deciding that Timothy was going to sneak out in the morning when they were supposed to be watching their pottery store, where their dad was making the pottery in the back. They were supposed to be watching the store, and I
Yeah.
was like, "Ooh, you snuck out! Not told anybody you're sneaking out. Your mum thinks you're gonna be watching this store. Gotta be a consequence to that action. There'll be something juicy." And a little few other things I was prompting me in that direction. I was like, "Yeah, all right, okay. I think this is what I'm gonna do. I think I'm gonna do this," and that then has set me off in a whole run of being able to do kind of like a sort of a story that I want to do. I still don't know how it's gonna work out, how it's gonna play out, and I don't want it to. I'm keeping it fluid and keeping it liquid,
Loosey goosey.
loosey goosey, so that it can adjust and it can move as we get closer to
I
certain
think a good thing
events.
as well is like if it's okay even as well to want there to be gaps that your DM can fill.
Oh yes.
Giggity.
Oh yeah, I did it. I
But
was you. I remember when I wrote Emmerich's, you'd ask me a question, and I had the benefit of going. Emmerich has amnesia, very cliche.
yeah,
Um,
it's cliche, but in a non-cliche way.
I suppose I don't care that it was cliche. It's D&D. I don't care. Uh, but he was reborn. He had been a zombie briefly. His memory had rotted away, but there were certain things he didn't remember. So when you'd ask me, and I'd go, yeah, I don't think he remembers that.
Yeah,
That was a gap in the story you were able to take advantage of.
yeah, yeah.
Certain things, though, yeah. So I mean, sometimes people leave gaps that are so obvious that I don't. It's not fun to take advantage of them. It's more just like, all right, I'm just gonna have to make something to fill that gap. There's not like a twist or a turn or a good story point. Um. Uh. I mean, I could say
Okay.
like a pet peeve for me then, if we're doing pet peeves right now. Pet peeve for
Yeah, yeah.
me,
Go for it.
is definitely I don't like it when players don't put enough thought into their characters. And
Yes.
that is, yes, it's a very me thing, which is why it's a pet peeve. It's a me thing. Is that I really like well thought out characters, or at least medium thought out characters. Um, but when people don't, it's just I want to play a wizard. I want to play a fighter. It's not a character. A fighter is not a character. Wizard is not a character. A
Or a
class is
class.
the last thing in the your in the list of personality. It is your last thing, and I've mentioned to people before about how there's different ways to build characters or how to think about your characters. I'm very
Yeah,
much personality, backstory, character first, and then I figure out what class they are based on what I've built for them. Whereas other people go, I want to play a warlock, and how can I play a warlock? I tend to go the other way. I have done the I want to play this, so I'm going to do that.
yeah,
But I nearly always have like a I'll try and fit that sort of thing into a pre-existing backstory idea.
yeah. I think I'm somewhere in the middle. Like I come up with a character concept rather than a class I want to play.
Hmm.
Um, so I'll always start with character concept, and then I'll be like, right, what do I want the personality for that character to feel like? Um, what do I want to role play, and what growth do I want to have? Which then helps me kind of think, right,
Hmm.
is there trauma that's caused something here, or and I can then kind of delve backwards into that, and then at the
Yes.
same time, I'm like, right, I've got a when I think of a character concept, I also think of what gameplay mechanics do I want to have fun with on this character, which then informs me to pick a class based on that.
Yes.
But one of the ones I've been thinking of recently, because I've been playing an absolute shitload of Cyberpunk, is some sort of like edge runner type character. And the kind of characterisms that I've come up with so far is like, how can I facilitate that into D&D without
Hmm.
it being tacky or cheesy? I'm like, okay, well, that's probably going to be um, a Warforged, but one that looks more like a humanoid. Well, not humanoid, but like an actual other race, like a human or an elf or something like
So like
that.
an
And
android opposed to like a
yeah,
robot.
it could even still be a complete robot underneath, but they would be created to look.
Well, that's what an android is, isn't it?
Yeah.
Typically in science fiction, an android is a robot that looks like a human.
Is it? Okay. I
Yeah,
can't. I don't. I
cyborg
know there's.
is
Oh no.
cyborg
Yeah,
is
I'm thinking
half
of
and
cyborg.
half.
Yeah, I was thinking of cyborg. That's
Yeah,
what I was thinking of. Which is kind of what you, I suppose, technically are in cyberpunk. If you want to get
yeah,
down
you are a
to brass
cyborg
tacks.
because it's half and half in it. Got
Yeah.
half robot. Half.
Um. But yeah, so more of an android. And then I would be like, right, okay, what do I actually want on this character? I quite like the idea of dual wielding. Um, do I want how do I want to be in motion? Do I want to be quite robotic, or do I want to have emotions and feelings? And that? So I kind of go like that. Whereas I
Hmm.
know you totally think of a personality first, don't you?
Generally speaking, I like an interesting character that I want to play.
Yeah.
Um, and the character the class comes pretty quick if you because you just go, I want to play this guy who was raised by an ent. Well, he's probably going to be a druid.
Yeah. Yeah.
Quick.
I think the class comes quite slow to me sometimes because I will mull over the mechanics for. I think because I know a lot of the classes fairly well.
Hmm.
I'll be like, right. So the one I was thinking of for that character was a strength-based ranger that
Yeah.
also flings throwing axes. So not really, they don't really use a bow or anything. They'd have um, two long swords or something like that as mantis blades.
Hmm.
Um, I know you can get arm blades as an item. I think they're short swords though, stat wise.
Yeah.
And then their ranged attack would be would be the axe. So I was like, right, how can I make that fit what I want to achieve with this? And I'm like, well, what would be the hacks? That would be some of the spells. And the ranger works quite well because you get early spells. So I was thinking of that sort of stuff
Hmm.
more than anything.
Well, I
And
did it.
personality was definitely a consideration at the same time for
Yeah.
me.
I briefly when I played the Dampier, I think it was kind of like, but I'm honest, I kind of went, I fancy playing a Dampier,
Yeah,
which is kind of not too dissimilar to going class first, but going to D&D race first.
yeah.
Um,
Which again is a good start. Just find something you want to do and then use that as the first point is what I think
yeah,
works best for me.
yeah. So my point is like it's less what you start with, but more continuing the thought process
Yes,
until
yeah,
you
yeah.
come to a well, you never really come to a conclusion if you build a character correctly, because life continues.
Yeah.
But you should
Think of it
feel
as a cube.
comfortable with a solid existing. This person could exist. This solid entity in your mind. Um, I because I think because I'm also a very visual person as well. I see it almost like their backstory like a movie in my head. So
Yeah, yeah.
I play out these things of what's happened in their life, these cool moments of what happened in their life in my head, and that does help me bring to life these characters. So when when other people don't have the same commitment, it rubs me a little bit the wrong way. Um, and I get it. Not everybody has the same imagination that I do. Um, don't be annoyed if your DM asks you like 1,000 questions just trying to get an answer for a very specific question. There's always a good reason why. Um,
Yes.
because they're trying to tell a story. They're trying to make all your characters fit together and work. You don't really want like a to have a character that has an irrational fear of devils to then have a player play a tiefling. Like it just doesn't. It's not going to work as a in the part. It could be interesting, but I don't think
I think that as well goes
it won't
back
work.
to my communications point. Is like at session zero,
Mm,
actually when players are still not like they're quite they're thinking of their character in a bubble.
yes,
Um, and I think for one shots that's fine. You're all just there to have a one session, one and
yeah,
done. Doesn't really like you make allowances.
you do.
But if there was a player that had reached out to me and was like, right, I want a character. Is there going to be devils in your campaign? Yes. Okay, cool. Because I was thinking I've got a character that's got a backstory with lots of trauma in, and so as a result, they're going to have a phobia of devils.
Yeah,
Sometimes it will go down like a sullen grief route. Sometimes it'll go down a rage route. So I might play a barbarian. It might fuel my rages. And like every time you think I'm going to do this or that, and you're making a choice, that's adding another facet to that character. So I always think of the first choice you make of a character is like just a flat square, and
Mm.
then every choice you make after that adds to a 3D shape, and
Yeah,
that's
and
kind
make it.
of how I've always thought of it.
Oh yeah,
And
well,
then
you generally use the term three-dimensional characters, don't we? When you're talking about building a character. So yes, your analogy works exceptionally well for
and then
character building.
so you've got a player that's done all that with you, and then nobody else has really communicated. So someone comes to session zero and is like, "I'm playing a tiefling," and because they've not communicated that to you before this, you don't really have the. I mean, you can still veto it there and then, and you can say, "Okay, well, such and such has told me that they do have this," which is probably going to present quite an issue, and you can really use that time to then at least communicate it and talk it out there and then. But ultimately, if the player then really wants to play a tiefling, you're looking at a bit of an awkward situation.
Tell you what, a hot take of mine is, I don't get the obsession with tieflings.
I don't either, to be honest. I've never played one.
Like I can't, I remember when Baldur's Gate came out, Baldur's Gate 3 came out, and the number of people you could see online playing tieflings, I was like, I
Yeah,
get it, they're purple or red or whatever, but just change the skin color. You can do that if that's what your thing is. It's just like I don't get the. Is it just like? And I do notice it a lot more that the women tend to prefer tieflings than guys do. Um, it's just a
they're definitely a
trend I've
bit of an
noticed.
LBG.
But
Um, they seem to be a bit of a representation of the LB. I can't, oh, never get it right. I get
LGBT.
dyslexic at this point. LBGTQ plus the Alphabet Mafia.
Mhm.
It's definitely part of that, and maybe that's why we don't get it.
Maybe.
I do like fantastical races. If you look at the characters I've played, I'm obsessed with vampires, so I've played a few Dampiers. I've played a Leonin. Um, the dwarf that I'm playing now is probably the most basic race I've played, apart from a human.
Mhm.
And I only played one human, and that was Arthur the Warlock. And I mean, look at Fitz. I've essentially homebrewed um, not homebrewed, but like he's an owlin, which I have as a raven instead,
Yeah.
who also is a reborn because of his backstory. So
Yeah.
like I get that you want to be a different character than just a straight up an elf, a dwarf, or a human. Um, so I can definitely get that, but I never really get the fixation with
Maybe it's horns.
tieflings.
Maybe people just really like horns.
Maybe
I don't.
that's it.
Yeah. Maybe it's the bad boy thing. Maybe it's because they're part devil and you think they're a bad boy. But it's not you. It's not even that. I don't think. I think people
I
just like horns.
I get I get the archetypes like Tiefling Warlock, Tiefling Sorcerer, and Tiefling Bard because that's just using the stats. Because before
Yes.
Tasha's, you had
Pre-dashes.
to use the racial stats, so I fully get that. Just like I understand Dragonborn wizards because I think Dragonborns originally started with intelligence.
Mhm.
Apparently, Steph says we are horny for horns. Although, oh no, someone's clicked allow.
That was me.
Yeah, maybe it is. Maybe it is just the horns. Um, I get it a bit more. I will actually say in Baldur's Gate 3 because Baldur's Gate 3 didn't have that much different characters, different
It
races.
had all
But
the PHP races, right?
yeah, but they're all boring.
I mean, you can make some pretty cool Dragonborn. I'll be honest, they look pretty smart. But
Yeah,
again, it's horns. I'm thinking it's like it's horns.
I see. I'm surprised that Dragonborn aren't more popular. I don't think they're that popular compared to Tieflings.
I wonder if with but they are. I think they are popular in D&D. Baldur's Gate, I don't think as much. I think Baldur's
Yeah,
Gate is because the whole everyone knows going into it. There's a big romance element to it. And a lot of people might struggle with the envisioning the whole scaliness of it all.
the
Um,
biology of the dragon maybe.
yeah. Uh,
They're a
I
little bit less human looking as well, so I suppose that might come.
yeah, I'd always rather play a Dragonborn over a Tiefling. I don't mind. I don't hate Tieflings. I just don't see the fascination with them. But I'd rather play a Dragonborn. You get a breath weapon. That's kind of cool. It's better than getting Oh, you could sell Matergi, and Hellish
I
Rebuke. Great.
I quite like playing usually um, quite large races. Some
Hmm.
of my favourite characters have been a Goliath, um, Narakis Malionin, who was big. He wasn't strength based, but he was still a
No,
big
we still very
vehicle.
much saw
Leonin,
him as being tall and
Leonin are big
broad.
creatures,
Yeah,
so he was. I think Berenger was technically a bit taller than him,
you
but he was.
you. I
No, it
think
was.
everybody was tall. Like out of the five of you, three of you were tall. Like you
Yeah.
look like because
Oh yeah, because
Judas.
Stephen started playing Judas Priest, didn't he? Yeah.
Yeah, Judas was a big, tall uh,
Asthma.
asthma. Yeah, and you were playing the Leonin, which I think it was just the nature of him had big daddy energy. So
Yeah, he did.
he that just worked. That's in our heads. So he was. And yeah,
Was.
Berenger
Yeah.
was the Conan the Barbarian, wasn't he? So
Yeah, basically. Um,
uh,
and then I think one of my other like just favorite characters that I played wasn't in one of your in our group at all. It was in a different my Monday group was
hmm.
a big Eldritch Knight called Thrice. And he was just he was slightly Nordic. He was a Goliath. Um, just really enjoyed playing him. And then I played a barbarian who was a Dampier, but I played him. Barbarians are massive. They're always massive, aren't they? It's the same
Don't have to
story
be.
with
You can play a
Berenger.
halfling. I like the idea of a
I I don't get the
halfling barbarian.
fascination with small characters.
Small characters.
Yeah, they're very popular. I know they're very popular. I don't get
I
it.
do like small. I've only ever played one small character. I think with it's weird for me because like I like gnomes. I'm less interested in halflings, but I think that's
I
because
just see them as the same. I
because
know they're
to
not. I know they're not.
they're not.
But I see them
But
as
to
the
me,
same.
like gnomes are supposed to be these. They're fey basically. They're these little trickster characters, and it's I know it's a bit little and cheeky and it just comes naturally in the idea of a gnome. Um, Yeah, I used to be a lot more interested in small characters. I'd say over compared to big characters, small characters I prefer, but my fascination with them has waned. Um, but uh, so I'm gonna slip in one quick last hot take and have no discussion about it, just because I think it's funny, and that is I don't get to deal with Asterion in BG3. So that'll be the end of this episode of the Awkwardly Big Dice podcast.
Fair enough.
And episode number 10. This episode has gone up onto YouTube, or will go up onto YouTube tomorrow if you're watching the live stream. If you're watching on YouTube, you're watching it, so you know it's already available on YouTube. That is youtube.com/ at awkwardly big dice. You can also find us on Instagram and on Twitter. At awkwardly big dice on Instagram and awkwardly big die on Twitter. As we said at the beginning, we'll be moving to exclusively on-demand content. So we will be on YouTube with exclusively, basically, not live streaming the episode is what I mean by on demand, so that we can edit a little bit more, clean up, and it'll also give us time to do so, for me to do so, I suppose. Um, and we can hopefully record two episodes in a row and get ourselves ahead a little bit as well. So if we do news next week, then the likelihood is you're probably going to get the same news in two episodes in a row because we'll be recording an episode to put ourselves in advance.
We don't really cover that much news. Let's
We
be
don't,
honest.
not unless I can't think of a topic to discuss. Then maybe we do news. But I am very grateful to all those who have watched us live and those who watch us on YouTube. Keep watching our content, keep giving us those likes, and subscribe to us on every platform that we are available on. And we will see you next time. So the next episode will be next Friday on YouTube. I don't have a set time that I release it, but check it for probably somewhere between like 5 and 6 o'clock, around 5 or 6 o'clock. In that general area, it's usually when it's available due to the time it takes to process on YouTube and things like that.
Yeah.
You can go check it out there. Leave a like, comment. Tell us what your hot takes are. Tell
Yeah,
us
give us some hot
why
takes.
our pet peeves are overreactions. They're not. Or why our hot takes are ridiculous, which maybe they are. Um, but we will see you next Friday for another episode. Episode 11 will be next Friday of the Equally Big Dice podcast. I've been Dan. This has been Rob, and I hope all your dice roll natural 20s. Goodbye.
Goodbye there.